Today I woke up to my neighbor's cat yelling at me through the balcony door. I heard that some cats and dogs become really caring when you're sick, but no, she just wanted to play. My time is slipping away from me these days. There's probably several reasons why it's been harder for me to focus on game development lately, but my attention has been so scattered with following the news, and to make matters worse, there's tons of channels who will rehash the same story over and over again, and they upload videos every day with some ultra clickable title and thumbnail that makes it seem like something new has happened. And it's partially believable that something new could be happening, but in reality, it's the same thing. I found it almost grossly deceiving, especially when there's like a huge sponsorship plug at the end or in the middle. I'm gonna have to sit down this weekend and honestly think about how I'm spending my time and energy. Despite all that, I've managed to develop 3 new monster maps, and I started working on the 4th. This update was focused on these 4 monsters. Upon closer inspection, the cat and the milk carton monsters looked kind of weird, so I did tweak them a bit to make them look a bit more normal. I'm also mulling around with the idea of making variations, like skins of monsters, so that you can have multiple variations on one map. It could be really cool to do this with a grandma map, similar to Cookie Clicker, where you have different varieties of grandmas, and they become corrupted in different colors as you progress in the game. I'll probably hold off on it until I find more use cases, because it will require maintaining another set of monsters and functionality. Moving on to the maps, I spent way more time working on the backgrounds this time around. It's been kind of challenging thinking about a new habitat for each monster. I did take a look at some games and I realized that they essentially will take the same theme, like let's say you have like a forest theme, and they'll just repurpose that on multiple maps with some slight variations, and that probably saves a ton of time. Perhaps it's something that I should consider doing in the future, but for now I'm going to continue and see how far it can get us. For this cookie monster, I've created a plains background. Milk and cookies have become a stereotypical classic despite me never having tried it myself. So I've made a new NPC that's called Malt Milk. It has Maltesers at the bottom of the glass, and that's essentially honeycomb or sponge candy that's covered in chocolate. In later worlds in the game, I want to have the ability to craft dishware and glassware, so I envision various ways to get the recipes or the ability to craft different things. So perhaps there'll be a quest slide from this NPC to give you the ability to craft glass. When we go down, you can see that I've left some space at the bottom of the map. I've kept it empty for now. I could just leave it like this in the final version, or maybe I'll have more integrations here, like special events or future content can be integrated here. This first whole world is based on cookies, so I've treated this as the first pass on this map. Moving on to the next map, we have the grandma map. You can imagine that the cookies in the last map came out of the grandma's oven or something. I've created a new tile set to give the grandma a candy paved road. I ended up doing a combination of the bingo and Hansel and Gretel themes. You can see that we have the plains background again, but we have bingo balls scattered throughout. I thought about making them bingo candies, like bingo sweets, so you'd have a wrapper. So you look at the currency of the game, you see there are little candies, so it could be a good tie-in. I could still go that route, because it's also a common trope that grandmas hand out candy, and this game will be focused especially initially on the more confectionery part of the culinary world. You can see that we also have a bingo machine for the NPC. I'm thinking about making a bingo minigame. It might not be in the first release of the game, but perhaps I could add it in a patch. Even though it's a game, I definitely don't want to promote gambling or addictive behavior, so it'll have to be something that I think about a lot. Perhaps it could be the introduction to achievements in the game even. You can also see that the grandma has a house in the corner. It is a candy house with a chocolate roof, or maybe it's marzipan, who knows. I've repurposed the cotton candy trees of the last update to give us some short potted tree shrubs. This map took me a really long time to draw because I had to figure out the perspective and try to make the colors work well together. I have these bushes in the front with the hopes of making those little critter bugs that you have on Cookie Clicker, where you have to defeat them to get the cookies that they stole. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. It would make a lot of sense to have it on this map and perhaps the cookie map as well. If we go to the top of the map, you can see I created a new woodcutting tree. My intention with this tree is to make it a more standard tree that you'd use for construction later on, and perhaps more advanced construction when you can make your own buildings. So this is a flaky oak tree, which is based on the Cadbury flake. I could also make it drop items that could be like the flake ingredient that you can use as a topper for pastries that you create. I might revisit this tree in the future to make it look a bit more Cadbury flake-like. I'm going to be drawing the drops for this tree in these upcoming weeks, so that could be a good opportunity. Speaking of trees, let's move on to the next map. Cats are often in trees, so I challenged myself to make one huge tree for this map. It's intentionally a taller map than usual. I made the monsters a lot more spread out because cats are very territorial. So if I wanted to be really true to the theme, I would even put just one cat on each platform. I might do that. We'll see when we're getting around to balancing the game out to figure out how much experience and loot this map will give us. I spent a lot of time this past month learning about cats, so that definitely inspired this map. This map was kind of inspired by those cat highways that you can put on your walls, where it's essentially floating shelves that the cats can jump between to entertain themselves. If we go up, we can see we have these balls of string hanging from the branches as well. In real life, you wouldn't want to give cats string unsupervised because it's dangerous for them if they eat it, but I've included it for a bit of color and to add some whimsical nature to the map. I'm pretty proud of this tree. I went from barely being able to draw a tree to deciding to draw a huge one. All of these leaves are drawn one by one, and I could have added more detail, but this is just the background, and I might even fade this a bit more instead of keeping it so vibrant. So this marks the end of the fully implemented maps. I created a sketch of the milk carton map, so I'll just open a sprite so we can see that. So here we have the sketch for the milk carton map. This is going to be the map where the fishing skill is introduced, and I made a new variation on the platforms to match this pier. Right now we have scoops of ice cream in the background, but if I think about it, this is not supposed to be a cold world, so I might replace all of these ice cream scoops with skyscrapers or something that these milk cartons live in. If we go with this theme, then this will probably be a waffle ice cream cone. That will be the NPC. I want to add a fisherman NPC, perhaps even a fishing store. Depending on how I feel, I probably will make the fishing pole and draw the fishing animations this time around, because I have to think about what the fishing skill will look like, whether it'll be a mini game or just a time-bound activity. Those kind of things will denote how I animate the water, and whether I have different fishing holes that pop up and are like kind of time limited and give you a bonus to what you can catch. There we have our milk carton sketch. I usually will make a black and white sketch, and then I go in with this pixel sketch and I refine each part of that over multiple stages until I get to the final elements that can actually be added into the game. So there we have the work for this update. Ever since I moved a month ago, I haven't been able to catch up to the place I was before, so I feel like I don't have time to spare, and that creates a vicious cycle where I feel like I'm behind, which then demotivates me, which then means that I don't have time to spare because I'm working much more slowly or procrastinating because I feel like I'm behind anyway. So I'm going to have to be more intentional about going back to the basics of giving myself flexibility to decide what I want to do in the 2 weeks, even though I say what I'm going to do. And make sure that I'm only putting in 2 weeks of work so I don't feel like I'm slipping behind when things inevitably take longer. I've also found it much harder to focus, so I want to begin training my focus up. I've just felt pretty frustrated and dissatisfied lately. I think it's hard to strike a balance of how much time should I be spending on this thing, especially when I've seen a lot of games that have more of a bare bones interface. But to a large extent, I do want to figure out how I can continue to make an immersive world that has a lot of variety and interest versus skewing more to the end of just deliver it ASAP. So that's where I am right now. I think there's also a high probability that I'm just feeling these frustrations because of not being satisfied in how I'm approaching everyday life, letting things drag out, and not really taking time off because I feel like I'm behind, so I can't take the time, but I end up taking the time through procrastination. I'll have to see how I can switch things up and get back on track in these upcoming weeks. As for what you can probably expect from the next update, I'll be working on drawing all of the monster drops for the newly introduced monsters. I'll finish up this milk cartons map, and I'll also be working on a new cookie dough map, and I think it'll be fun to make part of the fishing skill. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Feel free to subscribe if you'd like to continue following these updates, and I'll see you in 2 weeks with the next one.